This podcast is brought to you by Enlightening Learners Academic Coaching and Tutoring Services.
In this example, we're going to solve multiplication and division equations by using the property of equality. Make sure you copy down those questions. Make sure that they're on the left side in your Cornell format. So, we use division and multiplication properties of equality to solve equations that ask us to multiply or divide. So what it means is that if I divide both a and b by a c, they're still going to remain equal. So here's an example with actual numbers. We all agree that 3 equals 3. If I can divide this by 2, as long as I do it to both sides, the equations are going to remain equal. So that's what the division property of equality stands for. Now if I've got a problem, say division, 1 divided by 2, and we say that that's equal to each other. As long as I can multiply this by any number, as long as I multiply it by any number and it stays the same, the equation will stay equal. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 over 2 equals 4 over 2. So that's why we use multiplication properties of equality, because it remains equal and we can do anything we want to with the equation just as long as we do it to both sides. It has to remain balanced. Alright, so we've got an equation, negative 3x equals 27. What can we do to this equation to get x by itself? Now, this says that it's equal. So as long as we do the same thing to both sides, so this says 3 times x, and times is the key word. Well, what's the opposite of times? The opposite of times is division. So if I divide both sides by a negative 3, the negative 3 cancels each other, and we're left with x is equal to 27 divided by negative 3. This simplifies to x equals negative 9 over 1, or just negative 9. Now, you could think of it another way. Let's say I have negative 3, same equation, equals 27. I can multiply this. What's the opposite? Well, this is really 3 over 1. What's the opposite of 3 over 1? Well, the opposite of negative 3 over 1 is negative 1 over 3. If I multiply this, both sides, by a negative 1 over 3, this cancels everything out. I'm left with x on one side equals 27 times a negative 1 divided by 3, which again gets you negative 9. Alright, so we've got another problem. I think it's important that you understand what this says. So if you put this in the form of an equation, it says negative 2 times some number we don't know, we're going to use x, is 18. The operation that we're talking about is the multiplication. And what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So if I can divide both of these by the same number, now it makes sense to divide by negative 2 because it's the opposite of times negative 2. This cancels. I'm left with x is equal to 18 over negative 2. x is equal to negative 9. This says x divided by negative 3 is equal to 2. What's the opposite of divide? It's multiply. So I can multiply this whole thing by a negative 3. And I like to leave things as fractions just to make it simple, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of fractions. And so the negative 3 cancels, and I'm left with x by itself equals 2 times negative 3 divided by 1. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 1 times 1 is 1. X is equal to negative 6.